Welcome to the Good Grief Conversation. I'm your host, Janet Jones, and you're listening to UK Health Radio. This programme brings you honest, gritty, emotional and inspiring conversation around a subject that affects all of us, yet is still very much taboo. So join me now for this inspiring Good Grief Conversation. Well, I have a great guest for you today, as usual, but we're going a little bit different. I find that I've reached a point where I'm going into a searching and a seeking, looking for answers. In fact, recently it was the anniversary of my son, and I recently went on a very long walk. It was a pilgrimage, really. I set off from Yorkshire aiming to walk to Edinburgh, because that's where my son passed away, and it was, like I say, it was his anniversary. So I decided to put a backpack on my back with a tent and make my way on foot to Edinburgh. I made it to Northumberland and then I got problems with my feet, but that's okay because I wanted to walk in the wilderness. And what started that, I would say, is me searching for my son, searching for a way to connect to a higher being, something beyond human. And wilderness and nature seemed like the place to go. So I walked through wilderness in the UK, and yes, there is some. And I was walking along moors, no houses in sight, no people, a few cows and sheep. And I felt more connected. I guess I was hoping to be even more connected, but perhaps that's the beginning. And I think this conversation that you're about to listen to is also part of that seeking, part of the searching. Because today, I'm about to speak with a girl called Sophie Fox. She is an angel healer and the author of Guided by Angels. We have a very interesting conversation, and I'm sure you tune in, open your mind, open your heart, and take away from this, hopefully, some peace, some calm, some joy. And that's certainly what I got from speaking with Sophie. So sit back and enjoy. So Sophie, welcome to the Good Grief Conversation. And I'm really quite inspired to be speaking to you today because I'm talking about a subject that I'm not so much wanting to learn so that I can become an angel healer, but it is something that I know will be healing when going through times of loss and grief. And so, Sophie, before we go too much further on diving into the questions that I have for you after reading, several bits of your book, and I admit I haven't read all of your book, but I did pull out what I thought was the most relevant to this conversation today. But just give us, a little bit of a background to yourself and the training. What brought you to be interested in working with angels, and when did you realize that that was something that you were interested in and that you hadn't quite gone mad? Because some people think, what is all the angel nonsense? But so many people are doing this, so there must be something in it.
Well, I think it's funny. Angels are something that I really believe that all of us intuitively feel in our heart. We know to be there. And it's more of a case of remembering with angels rather than, learning about them. And yeah, my journey with the angels really started through Reiki, actually. I began my energy healing with the traditional Usui Reiki, but I actually went on to get my master's in angelic Reiki with the beautiful Pam Charlesworth at Cocoon in Home Firth, who I highly recommend. Amazing, amazing teacher. Yeah, and it's really, would say thanks to her that the world of angels opened up to me, because once I'd had that attunement with the angelic Reiki, that angelic world was, it took over really.
So is it something that just kind of opens up to you then, and then takes your mind onto bigger thinking, thinking things that most people are not really attuned?
Well, I've always been a person that, I like to follow my passions and whatever I'm interested in. And so that attunement with the angels, it led me to be curious about leading lights in the angel field. So I became a follower of Kyle Gray, who some people might be aware of. He's the UK angel expert based in Scotland. So I've been part of his angel team for the past 3 or 4 years now. And so I'm a certified angel card reader through Kyle. And, prior to that, there was Doreen Virtue, who, in her time before she became a fundamentalist, she was so comforting, so incredibly comforting. And I would, she'd come on to YouTube and she'd do her cards for the week. And it really was, the highlight of my week, the comfort and the upliftment that she brought.
She's the one that does all the angel cards.
Yeah, she's published a great many angel cards, books on angels, too many to mention. Sadly, she's renounced them all now, but that's another story. But yeah, and that's such comfort in your heart. Well, and that's what they're there for, is to really help us in times of need, to raise up our vibration, and to remind us of our own divinity as well. And give us that strength, where we've forgotten our own power, and that's what I love about them, and what's not to love.
I know. I have her healing card. I can't remember which ones they are now. Oh, they are the angel healing cards. I do turn to them, and they are always so accurate, like unbelievably accurate at times of need. They never fail. So that's an incredible body of work that she did create, whatever her outcome is now. So you did the Kyle Gray. I will look into him, find out more about him. And you did the channel angels and spirit guides. Oh, you do this through automatic writing.
Well, automatic writing is a wonderful tool, a wonderful way that you can connect with your spirit guides, the angels, and you just get yourself into a nice relaxed state, and just get your pen in hand. Some people like to write with the other hand, because it kind of disassociates your brain. But yeah, I just pick the pen up normally and just relax and switch your mind off and just write whatever comes through, and you'll be amazed actually. And if you keep doing this over time regularly, you'll notice that your style of writing will change, and the messages that come through are things that you wouldn't have even dreamt of, that you could have thought about. It's it's a lovely thing to do.
Amazing. Yeah, I have a friend of mine, in fact, one of my guests on here, Nikki Pattinson. She has been to see an automatic writer, and Nikki lost her baby boy when he was 4.5 months old. It was 30 years ago, and there's not a day that goes by that she doesn't think about, her son and how he influences her current life also, in a really good way. But and I know she does goes to spiritualists and stuff. She went to this automatic writer, and she actually brought the piece of paper round to my house and showed me what he'd written. And he had absolutely no idea who Nikki was, anything at all. And he wrote her son's name on a piece of paper. And her son's name isn't Michael or John or anything. Her son's name is Jackson. It's like, there aren't many Jacksons. And he wrote that name and several other things, but most of all, it was the name that was like, oh my goodness, there's only one way to know that, and that is that there is a connection going on, which is astonishing.
It's funny. I've just had a really fun weekend actually. I've been learning something called psychometry, where you get an item or a photograph of somebody, and you're looking at it and holding it and getting psychically all the messages that come through from that. And I have to say I've absolutely amazed myself. Absolutely amazed myself. And it's just letting go and trusting. And that's
And can anyone do this?
of course, everybody is psychic, you know. And it's
Not the judgment in your head, I guess. That's the problem, isn't it?
well, I think all it is, it's a muscle, just like anything else. And, you know, the more you practice, the stronger it becomes. And unfortunately, you know, over time, we've been blocking out our intuition. And so it has been something I've been actively working on strengthening for the past few years. And yeah, you know, we put up all these barriers of logic and questioning ourselves, you know, who am I to get messages? But actually, when we let go of that and just step into the trust, yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal what comes through. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. It's like meditation. It's quite hard to get to that complete state of letting go, isn't it? I did quite a lot of meditation, but years ago, and only 3 times ever have I ever achieved transcendental meditation, where I've literally gone out of my body and into this vast space that was amazing, you know, and it is just an incredible place of love and compassion. And then, of course, you have to come back here, but only 3 times. And I really struggle with doing that each time because it takes so much concentration, focus. You can't have anything else going on, or for me anyway. And I like to do it in silence, but of course now I've got tinnitus, so I have no silence. There's no such thing as silence for me anymore, sadly. So I need to find a way of doing that again, maybe with some like water sounds in the background or something like that. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yes, yeah. And I would just say that, you know, anybody that is looking to build their spiritual practice, meditation is the single number one thing that you can do to benefit yourself. I will confess, you know, it is something that I have been struggling with a little bit. So I've been training myself on how to do meditation for a while. And yeah, I am able quite quickly to go into a very deep state where, you know, I can just see these wonderful colors and I know I'm connecting with my guides then. Yeah, but there's different types of meditation. You know, people think and get put off by meditation by thinking that you have to be like a Buddhist monk, a Zen Buddhist monk, you know, doing nothing. You know, there are guided meditations, there are active meditations you can do while you're walking. You know, there's different styles, and so I think it's experimenting really and finding what works for you.
Yeah. One that I love when I'm out and about is a meditation based on not gathering information. So if a bird tweets, I'm not thinking, oh, what bird is that? I just allow the tweeting of the bird, or I don't question what kind of tree it is or anything. It's like if you don't label anything at all, then it all just is. That gives me great peace and stops the mind chatter as well, because I'm not looking to gain knowledge. I'm just looking to be in that space.
Yeah, you're just in that state of acceptance and awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. And not awareness of me trying to control it, just of awareness of what is. Yeah. Oh, I mean, we could talk about meditation forever. It is actually a huge subject. But I want to go onto your book now. And just remind me, the title of your book is?
Guided by Angels, A Journey Through Life with the Archangels. Yeah.
And this is so that people can learn to be guided themselves through angels and learn more about the angels. Is that right?
Well, I mean, there's a few books out there on angels, but you know, my passion behind this book was to find a way to connect people's everyday problems and struggles with how the angels can help them. So this is a very much more practical, down-to-earth, day-to-day guide through whatever you're going through, and I do really believe it will transform people's lives.
Yeah, well, I've just read, like I say, I've read a couple of chapters, and they're great. You know, they're absolutely brilliant. And the one that is the most relevant to this conversation, obviously, is chapter 9, A Comfort and Grief, Endings, Transitions, and Mediumship. And this is Archangel Azrael. Is that how you would pronounce that?
Azrael.
So tell us a little bit about Archangel Azrael and why is he? Are they all male?
No, they have no sex, they're neither male nor female. It's us that kind of labels them according to their characteristics, but for the sake of ease, I will say he. An Archangel Azrael is an angel that a lot of people have been a little bit scared of because he is known also as the angel of death. But, he is the most gentlest, most softest, compassionate, loving angel you could ever imagine. And yes, he helps with transition. So when people are transitioning on into spirit, he also helps people when they're going through grief. And interestingly, helps mediums as well, that are bringing messages through from spirit. So yeah, he can help us connect with the spirit world and cope with change. Yeah.
Oh, you also talk about the Talking to Heaven cards by James van Praagh.
James van Praagh, yes. Yeah, I find those really, really useful, actually.
I'm going to check those out, actually. They sound really interesting.
I highly recommend
And another
those.
book that you recommend in your book is The Top 10 Things Dead People Want to Tell You by Mike Dooley. How did that kind of help and inspire you?
The way Mike writes, it's very easy to read and it's very upbeat. And I know that title sounds quite scary.
Well, put the word dead in any title and people black. But actually, death can be, well, it's a very spiritual thing, but it's also very energetic in many creative ways too. We're painted such a dark picture of death, but certainly through my journey, I've experienced light also. In fact, I think I was telling you on the phone the other day of me walking through Manchester and getting a sensation of bright white light flowing through me, through all my veins. And I thought that can only be Murray. And it was so powerful, it was amazing. So I think we need to look for those moments.
I think, Mike paints a picture so eloquently of what it could be like on the other side, where colours appear so much brighter and everything is just so much richer, and compared to Earth, where Earth would almost feel like a cartoon in comparison,
And what's this other side? What's the other side thing? Other side of what? Where is the other side?
Well, the other side is all around us.
Right.
Your loved ones are only ever a thought away. We think that they go on to somewhere else, but they're always still with us. Yeah.
It's strange though, isn't it, when we talk about, the other side, but yet we talk of all these colours, yet we as humans can't see these colours.
Well, this is the thing, we're only limited, you see, with our very limited 5 senses, well, 6 if you class the third eye as well. But if you consider the whole light spectrum, for example, our eyes are only able to pick up a tiny little pinprick on that light spectrum. And we know there are so many other creatures, like dogs, have a far better sense of smell than we do. They can track, days afterwards what animals have been around. I think insects, they can see ultraviolet light. The list goes on and on. So actually, we're conditioned to pick up on reality with these very, very limited, what we can touch and what we can see. And of course, there's more to the universe than that.
That's a really great explanation, actually, Sarah, because can you imagine when you no longer have this shell that we are in, and you're set free from this, presumably you can now have access to everything that an insect can see, to right up to all animals are seeing, like you say, on that spectrum. But I've never had that experience, like bing, light bulb moment. That's amazing. And so therefore, there is that possibility to be around, but be part of that. That makes perfect sense to me. So our spirits are around, but they're part of that.
There's no restriction. Time doesn't exist. Time is a man-made thing. So when you're in spirit, all that exists is the present.
So if time doesn't exist and it's man-made, that means that we, the real us, are infinite completely. It's just the body that has just a time period for it to be alive, just like a tree and its leaf and that kind of thing. That's amazing. We just want to take care that we get as much as that time here on Earth as we can. Unless, of course, it's truly amazing elsewhere, then you're like, well, actually, let's just have fun here and not worry then about dying.
Well, it's interesting. I think when you're on the other side, though, well, first of all, you're not constrained by your body. So issues of what gender you are, what race you are, what culture you are, none of that exists anymore. But also, there are no challenges, because you can instantly manifest, anything you want just appears. Anywhere you want to go, just
Like what might you want?
use your imagination. You don't know, you could go. Yeah, so there are no challenges. And I think probably after a while, as wonderful as all that is, you might become bored of that.
Yeah, and think I'll be a human again for a while and cause myself some trouble.
Well, also, I think when you're up there, you forget that, how difficult life is here on Earth.
It's only difficult because of man's influence on us, though, isn't it? What makes life... I've just done my walk. I was away for 3 weeks walking through wilderness in the UK, and I felt very free and it was amazing. And then when I got back, it was all life's admin that really stressed me out. Suddenly people, were wanting things from me. I had to fill out forms for council tax, and my business needed doing. And you're like, oh, jeepers. So it's man-made constructs that cause us the problem and the stresses.
Well, yeah, it's life.
But I guess that we'd have other problems as well, wouldn't we? Because we've always had to protect ourselves, and that comes with the stress anyway.
But I think as well, a big part of our struggle comes because, we come into this life forgetting who we are. We come into this life forgetting that we are a divine spark of God, of universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it, source energy, it's all the same thing. We come in forgetting our intrinsic power and connection to that as well. And I think a lot of people struggle because of their sense of separation. And I think all of us have that inner longing to connect back to that oneness, that love, that unconditional love, because, that is our true source essence.
That's probably the thing we're all really searching for, to find freedom. That is freedom, really, isn't it? To go back to take ourselves spiritually and emotionally back to that source. And then at that point, presumably, and I'm guessing here, at that point, you then can connect fully with your loved ones who have passed and your spirits, would you say?
Well, you can connect with your loved ones and your spirits at any time. Yeah, they're only ever a thought away. You don't have to be in some kind of altered state or whatever to be able to do that. That's just having an open willingness to trust.
Right. In fact, I did read a nice story of yours in your book, because you lost your brother when you were quite young, didn't you?
Yeah, my brother was he was 34 when he passed, yeah.
In your book, you share a story. Was it where your daughter makes a place for him at the dinner table? Just remind me about that one.
It was only a few weeks after he'd passed, actually, and we've inherited a lovely round dining table. And the table, it came with 5 chairs. Now there's only 4 of us, me, my husband and my 2 children. And my little girl, who was quite young at the time, she was wanting to help. We were having pancakes, and so I got her, said, can you set the table for us? But she put a placemat in front of all of the chairs, so she put 5 down. And then we sat down to eat, and we'd realised we got an extra place. And I says, oh, it's all right, Uncle Edward can sit there. And then some weeks later, I took my mother, actually, for comfort, to see a talented, gifted spiritual medium. And we both had a reading from her. And in mine, she just totally unprompted just came out with the fact that, Your brother was absolutely delighted that you set a place for him at the table. You could have, honestly, you could have, it floored me.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Absolutely floored me.
Such a great story. Such a great story. And the other thing that I picked up as I was reading the chapter 9 was that you talk about intuition being on the right side of the brain. And I find that really fascinating because any intuitive, and I'm going to say messages because I don't believe they're thoughts because they always sound like voices that are outside of me. And they're always on the right side of my head, always.
Oh, that's interesting that you can discern that. Well done. Wow.
Going right back to, and I'm sure I've shared this story before on the Good Grief conversation, years ago in my early 20s. I was going to stay with a friend of mine. I was in London and my friend was down in Poole, and it was a Saturday night. I was a bit miffed because I had no party to go to. And she said, why don't you just come and stay with us? And as soon as she said that, this voice that sits on the right side of my head said, your car's going to break down. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll come. So I went, car didn't break down. And I'm like, see, what a load of bollocks that is. Excuse that. So then the day after we'd had a lie-in, we decided to go to the beach. We get into my car, I turn the engine on, and the car doesn't start. It then rolled backwards down a hill and almost hit another car. But that is that's a longer version of the story. But that was the first one. And it was almost as though whatever, universe, angels, whoever, was saying, watch out for this voice, because my car was going backwards actually down a hill. It sounds like a ridiculous kind of Laurel and Hardy story, but it was heading straight for a brand new car. And at the last minute, and I say, but for the grace of God, because there is no other explanation for this, it just twisted a little bit and skimmed this girl's car. Didn't hit her, it cleared the car, but it was actually going for head on, and it just turned at the last minute. And it was almost like, this is a warning, pay attention to that voice.
You've got people looking after you.
Yeah, well, I just wish they would give me louder messages with more clarity. I mean, that one was pretty clear, and I probably should have listened to that one. But on the day that we lost Murray, I had, again, right voice. I chinked glasses with my daughter. We were watching Wimbledon finals. We had Prosecco. I chinked glasses. And I said to her, because obviously happiness expert, I always look for those happy moments. And I said, this is what happiness is about. You don't need to have loads of money to be happy. And this voice over to my right again said, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. Why couldn't you say, your son's about to be in a climbing accident, get your butt to Edinburgh? Don't jinx it. That one was like pointless.
I don't know. You have your guidance comes to you in many, many forms, and like you so rightly point out, the angels, your guides, they have like little whispers in your mind. But I can tell you that, if it is a message from your angel, it will only ever be loving. It will only ever be gentle and nurturing. Even in the midst of a huge, big disaster, it will still be like that. And that's how you can differentiate between your ego and messages from the angels, because of that, your ego will tell you, oh, there's not enough time, or it will put pressure on you, and tell you negative things, because it's trying to protect you.
Well, what was also strange at that moment in time, sorry, Sarah, I cut you up then, but my daughter said she felt a dark feeling when we did that at that same time. Where that's coming from, I don't know.
So you had some kind of ominous premonition
that something was coming, but it's weird because you're like, well, it was an accident, or was it an accident? Because if we're getting premonitions, then you start to question. I don't know. We're now running the risk of going off on a crazy conversation.
Yeah, I was talking to a very gifted clairvoyant medium yesterday, and he was explaining to us that, when your time's up, your time's up. You are born with a date on your forehead, and, whether it's a disease or an accident or suicide or whatever, doesn't matter. That's your date.
Only we don't know what that date is. And thank goodness we don't. But I guess the upside of that information is that Yeah, we've all got a date. You don't know when it is, but don't sit around worrying about it. There's one thing guaranteed is it's happening. So surely that's meant to make us live more, don't you think?
And especially, I think having knowledge about the angels and about the other side and the reality of it, I think it's far more comforting not to live in fear of the next stage, you know.
Yeah, I agree actually. And what you were just saying there about the angelic guide will always come from a place of love. And what we were saying just before we came onto the call, we were talking about the opposite of love being fear, whereas a lot of people think the opposite of love is hate. Now, you were saying, in fact, this is something else that I want to chat to you about. So, we've not got much longer, but that means hopping to chapter 16. But we'll come on to that in a minute. So, we were saying about the opposite of love being fear, and I said that you would think opposite of love is hate, which is what is more commonly known. But underneath hate actually is fear. And then you started to talk about the energy of hate being similar to the energy of love. I mean, it was a brief chat before we came online. So what was you thinking as I made that observation?
Well, just in the power of your emotions, I think it is possible to hate someone even though you love them.
Right.
They're not really two sides of the coin. The two can go hand in hand. Whereas fear is energetically very different energy.
Right. So why is that the opposite to love?
Well, love is acceptance, isn't it? And it's an openness, whereas fear is constricted in its survival. It's being scared, and yeah, so energetically speaking, and I can measure this with dowsing rods. It's very, I have a lovely technique to do this. You've seen dowsing rods, how they work, and they splay out when they come up to an energy. So I get them in pairs, and I get one person to remember a time when they felt really scared and fearful, and I get the other person to walk up to them with the dowsing rods, and they will be able to walk all the way up to that person without the rods moving because they have drawn their energy so tightly into them. And then we do the exercise again, and I get them to imagine a time when they felt truly loved and comforted and happy. And you can hardly go anywhere near them before the rods spray right out because their aura has expanded right out. And so that is a visual sign that these are two opposite energies for you.
That's amazing. I think it's in chapter 16. We'll just step into that one. So that's Archangel Raziel. There's a lovely thing that you say there, actually. It's not that we feel better, it's that we get better at feeling. And I found that statement that you'd written there very intriguing. So I thought, can you expand on that?
The whole purpose of the book is that I'm trying to help people build their emotional intelligence. And so the way we do that is by accepting our feelings and honoring our feelings and noticing them. Because, a lot of us, when we're going through tough times, we don't want to feel that pain. And it's understandable. We try and drown it out with all manner of things, from drugs to alcohol to sex, you name it, a chocolate, any avoidance to feel that. So it's really learning to be comfortable in accepting your emotions and sitting with them. And a wonderful exercise, just very, very simply, that you can do if you're having issues right now, because I think a lot of us are struggling, is to write down what you're going through, to write down how you feel about things, and what a situation means to you. And actually think then how you can thrive after it as well. But, as you're writing this, really just kind of sit with those emotions and let them be part of you. Because when we're doing that, once we're able to do that and to accept them, it's then that we are able to transcend and move beyond them. you know. When we don't, what we're doing effectively is we're holding it inside our bodies, and actually that's when we become prone to dis-ease, because we're holding that pain inside our bodies, and that's, you know.
And your body keeps score. You know, your body literally carries all of this, doesn't it? So it's not about denying how you're feeling, it's about accepting how you feel, write that out so that you can.
Yeah, writing it down is so therapeutic. Yeah, and read over it and just be comfortable in just sitting with that emotion. And the same goes for pain as well. You know, if you're in any kind of physical pain at the moment, just put your full awareness onto where that pain is felt.
Because I am at the moment. I've got plantar fasciitis.
It's a very long, fancy word.
Which simply means my feet really hurt.
Okay.
Well, it's not because of my walk. I actually think that since losing Murray, I don't think this, I absolutely know this. When you know, we first lost Murray, and I don't like the word lost, Murray passed on to the other place, that I felt like I'd been run over by a truck physically. You know, it was a real physical blow. And I think my body now is left with the knots in my muscles, and my legs, even my back, my neck, everything feels really knotted. But my legs in particular, and I think that is actually where plantar fasciitis is.
That pain has been stored inside your body.
Yeah. On the underneath of my foot. So it's about releasing all those knots and things that are in the body.
Yeah, so just really bring, you know, if you're in pain, really bring that awareness to that part of that body. And actually, the more you do that, you'll notice, yeah, the pain's there to start with, but it disperses. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And ask yourself as well, ask that pain, why is it there? What is it wanting to show you? Because all pain is trying to bring our awareness to something that is unresolved. So,
oh, that's interesting.
So the more we can be present with that and bring our focus to it, the more we can accept it, and then it will be released.
Interesting, because all I do is I focus on physio exercises, and I'm in a rush to get rid of the pain, because I'm like, come on, pain, go away, I need to go walking again. But actually,
yeah, it's there to tell you something. You've got to sit with it.
That's what I will be doing, Sophie. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our call now, and because we're talking about the lifting your energy vibration, and I noticed in your chapter 16 that you talk about the scale of consciousness, and that grief is at scale 75. But what does that mean exactly?
Well, we have energetically a scale of consciousness. So yeah, where the lowest vibrational energy is shame at just 20, and then you have guilt at 30, and this goes all the way up through grief not is only 75, fear 100. And it's just a way of measuring energetically our own vibration, our own energetic frequency, all the way up to love, which is 500, joy above that 540, peace at 600, and enlightenment at 700.
So what would the journey be to move up from, obviously from 75, you don't want to go to the state of fear at 100, you want to bypass that one. So what's the journey to raise that? I mean, we've talked about sitting with it, accepting our feelings.
That's it. And also, my biggest tip to you is just throughout, if you're really struggling right now, just ask yourself, what would somebody who loves themselves do right now? And do that, you know, because actually the shortcut to enlightenment is self-love. So simple as that. Yeah. And you will notice every single self-help book out there worth its salt will encourage you towards self-love
and self-compassion. And this isn't self-love as in an ego self-love. This is the deeper level of love and compassion for self.
And so just nurture yourself, you know, find things, just keep looking in life for things that bring you joy. And when you feel that little vibration of excitement, go for it. You know, quite often a lot of us, they hold themselves back from what gives them joy. And, you know, you now have full permission
to find joy, because it's always there at the same time, isn't it? It's like the spirits. If spirits are kind of always there, then all of this is always there at the same time. Like last week, I had a really dark time. I had to reach out to many people. But then as I came through that energy, and I did sit with my emotions, I'd never tried to push them, I just went with them. And as I came through that, I thought, right, okay, now I want you to consciously come out of this, not just let time be the healer and pass by. So I took steps, I took real action, and I have a yellow book, which is the color that came to me after Murray passed away. And in there, every day, I do 3 things. I to list 1 to 3 things that bring me joy that day, 1 to 3 things that take me out of the darkness, and 1 to 3 things that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, I was just going to say gratitude journals are so powerful.
But I wanted more than a gratitude journal because I'm very grateful. Gratitude isn't a problem, but I needed to find joy. And sometimes gratitude doesn't bring you the joy. And I also needed to make steps to come away from the darkness. That doesn't mean that I don't go into darkness again, because grief has its own journey. It's the waves, and you can't always stop them. But I guess what you can do is be more prepared for them.
Emotional resilience, yeah, and that's what the book teaches.
Is about that as well.
And of course, life is always going to throw things at you, but if you've got emotional intelligence and emotional resilience, you find that you're able to bounce back much quicker.
Yes, I agree 100%.
That's what I'm really passionately wanting to help people with.
Yes. And the time to gain that emotional freedom and emotional resilience is actually when life is good. If I hadn't have been doing the work that I was doing previously, there's no way I would be having this conversation with you right now. Just over a year ago, that losing my son, there is no way I would be having this conversation.
You're on a path to help raise other people up. That's your sole purpose.
I couldn't have raised anyone up last week. But having said that, you also have to experience that too in order to help others.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not until you've gone through something yourself that you can appreciate what others are going through and be there for them. Yeah.
Oh, Sophie, this has been a really lovely conversation. There's so much more we can talk about. And I will read all of your book because I thoroughly enjoyed the parts that I had read. And also, you very kindly gifted us chapter 9 about the angels and the grief. And so for anybody who joins the podcast extras, you'll be able to get that as well.
And I think it's just lastly just important to mention, grief, it's not always about losing a person. It can be losing anything. I think a lot of people are going through struggles right now where they're losing their identity, they're losing their jobs, they're finding grief in many ways of, losing.
People are losing businesses, and there's a lot of loss that the whole world is going through right now. And like you say, the grieving is the same. It's just different intensities, but does require the same solution.
Yeah, so the book really deals with that. Yeah.
No, it's great. There's loads in that, and there's going to be links and things to your book as well if anybody wants to find out more information about that. Sarah, thank you so much. That's been a great conversation. I'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Janet.
See you later. Bye. Well, I hope you found that as enlightening and comforting as a conversation as I did. Sophie is amazing, and she's a great angel healer and angelic guide. Don't forget, her book is Guided by Angels, and she's also given us a chapter from her book, which is a great chapter, the angel that we spoke a lot about, which is Archangel Azrael. And that's chapter 9 from her book, and it's the angel of comfort and grief, endings and transitions, which is really what comes out of grief. And it's good to have that information to help you with a more progressive transition and one that has kind of less problems to it. But sometimes when we take guides and listen to information, then it just helps us with finding our way again and finding that new path, the new balance in life as well. So Sophie Fox and the Guided by Angels book and her free chapter. Now, the free chapter is available in the podcast extras. If you would like to sign up to that, then go to www.thegoodgriefconversation.com. Now, I have set this up where there are 3 options to sign up to the podcast extras. And if you would like to support this conversation and that you are enjoying what you are hearing, then it's always great to have a little bit of help promote this program even more. So when you go to sign up for the podcast extras, you're going to see 3 options. Option 1 is the free option, because I think this is so important that this conversation is widely known and the lovely gifts from our guests that you have access to. But there are 2 other options if you would like to support this conversation and the work that we do at the Good Grief Conversation. Then there is one option for the price of a paperback book. You can have access to all this information and forever. That is option 2. Then option 3 is for the price of a hardback book. So whichever you choose, that's wonderful. It's great to have you as part of this community and being able to have this bigger and broader conversation. Because grief, it doesn't only come once in our life. It actually comes many times. Grief is part of all endings and beginnings. And I guess that is what life is about. It's a series of endings and beginnings. Some endings are more catastrophic than others, but we still must go on after that. And so it's important to get this information, to come together as a community, to have each other's back and each other's support. So I look forward to hearing from you. Come and join the podcast extras and join this community. So that's it for this week here on The Good Grief Conversation, aired on UK Health Radio. I am your host, Janet Jones, and I very much look forward to speaking to you next week, where I have another guest who's going to take us even deeper on the soul kind part of our lives. So I'm very excited to share that with you, and let's keep growing and keep transitioning and keep making life even better. You know, wherever you are at right now, it isn't always going to be that way. Life changes. Life is impermanent. So I look forward to speaking to you next time. In the meantime, you take care, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye for now.